One, two, three, four.
Good morning and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Good Morning Guys, or GMG podcast. I'm one of your hosts, the Brazilian mountaineer Lucas Ham Swisher, and I'm joined by the Photoshop phenom Patrick Novosel.
Good morning.
The spontaneous wet kisser Ronnie Johantis.
Hello.
And finally rounding out the fearsome foursome, the music man himself, Marc Boucher.
Greetings and salutations.
Greetings and salutations to you, Marc. Thanks for joining us on this morning, afternoon, evening, or night as we chat about all things games, sports, video games, even life itself, which some might even consider the greatest and most difficult game of all. Because it's so difficult, you shouldn't go at it alone. So we're going to be right here with you guys, reminding you that with each and every new morning, day, or week, you have a new opportunity to get back into the game, enjoy life, laugh, cry, and share it with all others around you, just the way God intended. So guys, from week to week, we're going to be sharing about our lives, gathering around the water cooler to talk about, current events, various topics of discussion, sometimes serious, sometimes hilarious, sometimes stories of the past, other times visions of the future, such as when the prophecy of Wally will someday come true. And hopefully, in the hour or so of our time together, we'll inspire one another and do our best in the game of life and laugh a little along the way. So, today, guys, on our first day as a podcast, let's start things out by sharing a little bit about ourselves, such as where we're from, what we do, what games we watch and play, etc., and etc. Then after that, we'll get into our topic. Let's start things out with Patrick.
Hello. First off, I've never seen Wally. What are you talking about regarding that?
Fat guys going around in big old floating chairs.
What?
Everybody's fat and they can't walk.
That's
Marc,
the prophecy?
That's your sales pitch for Wally, Marc? Come on, man.
Yeah, I gotta
Fat
be honest
guys
with
in
you. I didn't know
chairs.
what you were talking about either. I was just gonna go with
It's
it.
not
I wasn't
it's not a sales pitch, but it's the truth. It's what
on.
they show in the movie.
All right, elevator pitch real quick, Pat. Wally is
real
about
quick.
a robot.
Okay.
Real quick. This is going to be fast. Time me. 20 seconds. It's about a robot on a post-apocalyptic Earth that finds the human race on a spaceship far away and discovers that they're just getting fat and wasting away their lives looking at screens and not interacting with each other. And the reason they're there is because they've destroyed the Earth through garbage, through overpopulation, consumerism, etc. The
Gotcha.
end. The prophecy of Wally.
Oh, okay.
So fat guys in floating chairs.
I did not say anything about floating chairs, but that's okay.
But they
Yeah.
are in the movie.
Okay.
But anyway,
It's a
Now it
good,
all
it's a good
makes sense.
Pixar movie. You understand now?
Yes.
I'm glad we
Thank
glad
you.
we
I
clarified
appreciate that.
Pixar is prophetic.
So anyways, Patrick here. I was born and raised here in the Queen City of Cincinnati, Ohio. I have two older brothers and one younger sister. I do want to give a shout out to my oldest brother, Scott, and he is the one that put together the intro music for this podcast. So I wanted to shout him out.
Yeah, shout out to him
Nice.
for sure.
I gave
Thank you,
him some
Scott.
parameters of what I wanted or what we wanted in the intro and the music. And he put it together and sent me a rough draft and immediately fell in love with it. And I told him he didn't need to go any further into making anything else. And we really enjoyed that. And big shout out to him. Other things about me. Back in high school, I met my wife. We've been together for 17 plus years. Been married to her for 10 of those years. We got 2 kids, a dog, and a guinea pig. We just got that guinea pig earlier this year, so I'm not too fond of guinea pigs. I don't know about if guys have ever had a guinea pig, but they just sit in cages.
They have really,
so on a future
really good meat.
podcast, Oh, go ahead, sir.
I was just saying they have really good meat.
Oh, really?
All right.
No. Not
On a future podcast, we hear about punting the guinea pig.
I agree with that. No.
So I work for an insurance company here in Cincinnati, Ohio. Been there for a little over 11 years. I'm a manager for a team of 8. I handle payments coming in to pay insurance policies, accounting, math is involved. Nothing too crazy, but it allows my wife to stay home with the kids, especially during summertime when they're home. So we don't have to worry about a lot of babysitters or anything of that nature, since she's able to stay home, which we're really blessed that I'm able to work and she's able to stay home. So
Cool.
yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
What about games? What do you watch? What do you play?
Okay, so I am a console gamer. I have a PlayStation 4 Pro and an Xbox One X. I have no preference to which system that I game on. I don't have a PC. I don't have a gaming rig. I've had a gaming rig since I was in high school, and it was tough for me to figure out how to upgrade, what kind of settings, resolution, all the graphics cards and stuff like that. It just seemed like it was too hard for me to figure out. So I gravitated more towards console games, because I like the feel of the controller in my hand, and sitting on the couch rather than sitting in a chair right in front of a monitor playing a mouse and keyboard. So I don't have a preference, but I'll play pretty much any games. I gravitate more towards sports games and action adventure games. I've owned Madden for the last 25 plus years. Ever since Madden's come out, it's been my go-to game. I play every Friday night with my buddies. Other than sports games, the action adventure, like the most recent game that I played is Spider-Man. And that's the newest game that's come out for PlayStation 4. It's exclusive for the PlayStation. So I'm really into the comic book style media. So any of the Marvel or DC movies that come out, I'll watch those. Any Marvel or DC games that come out, like the Batman, Spider-Man games, I will play. Other things that I do, other than like anytime I have a free time, I usually game. If I don't game, then it has something to do with sports. Like I'll watch the Cincinnati Reds, I'll watch the Cincinnati Bengals every Sunday, or whenever the Bengals play. My dad and I watch it together. So it's my dad and mine, our time together to hang out and cheer on our local sports teams. So yeah. I love Sundays. Yeah, when my dad comes over, because that's our time. The kids aren't around, the wives aren't around. It's just us. So I really look forward to Sundays.
That's awesome, dude. How about you, Ronnie? Tell us about yourself.
All right, I feel like I should have went first. Patrick's like a tough act to follow. But so I also live in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, work for an insurance company. Same company as Patrick, actually. We work in different buildings, though. My job consists of paying agents compensation. It's a pretty boring cube job. It's the standard cube you see on TV, sitting all day working. That part is pretty boring. What I spend my off time doing mostly, for probably the past 6 months, I work out a lot. Like I have a trainer that I see twice a week now, which is miserable. I always can't believe every time I'm in there that I pay like to be tortured. But it does definitely make a difference. And then I also play in like 5 sand volleyball leagues right now. So definitely a bunch of those. That's tearing
Only 5?
Yeah, it's only 5 exactly. That's kind of tearing me up a little bit.
I think you can make that 10.
Yeah, I might. Next session, I'm thinking about, just doubling up, so I won't be crawling at the end of the week. So in my spare time, I'm big into sports, watching sports, playing sports, really just anything outside, go out and, play sports. Like, we always play wiffle ball and stuff at family functions. Really anything like that. I watch pretty much everything. Pretty much everything Cincinnati related, I should say. So the Reds, the Bengals also. I'm kind of a baseball nerd. I watch, probably 80 to 100 games every year, I would assume. So pretty much whenever they're on and I'm home, like I and I'm camped in front of the TV watching. So even though they're not doing too good right now, it's still I'm still a nerd, so I still watch.
So you're not a fair weather fan.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm not. I'm like looking at prospects for next year and stuff. Like, oh man, they're bringing this guy from AAA. It's awesome.
Calling up the manager, giving him suggestions. And
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm trying to get info from all the beat reporters and everything.
There you go.
But I also watched the Cincinnati Bengals. Unfortunately, they're my favorite football team. They did win recently, so I can't be too hard on them. But I pretty much watch them because I like to be miserable, and I like something really to rough me up on Sundays and really just really get me in a bad mood for the rest of the day. Love that.
Wow, you really know how to sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I still do root for them, and I think as far as games go, I play games probably the least out of all of us. I would assume I play maybe like one night a week, maybe every other week. So not too terribly much. I think what I spend most of my time doing is playing volleyball, working out, and stuff like that. And something I put a ton of time into, I'm pretty surprised Patrick left out, is fantasy football. So like football season goes, like Sundays, like I'm just watching every game because I have like a player in every single game with stakes on it. So it's just something that we have a huge league at work that we play in where everybody's really cutthroat, and it's really fun. Really, it's just a nice escape, from everything. But that is pretty much it. How about you, Mark?
Well, I am what they would call a Yankee where I am now. They call me a Yankee. I'm originally from New Hampshire, the Granite State. Lived there pretty much my whole life until I left for college at 17. And then I moved to Virginia. And I've pretty much never left Virginia. I got my bachelor's and master's degree from Liberty University, go Flames, and I met my wife here, my wife Kristen. We've been married just over a year now, just celebrated our year anniversary. And
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congrats,
Thank you very
man.
much. Yeah, I'm doing better than most celebrity couples. But
Yes.
Killing it.
yeah.
Gotta have them goals.
Yeah. But I went to school mainly for worship and music studies because I felt the calling into ministry, music ministry specifically. I'm actually in bivocational ministry right now. By day, if you will, I'm basically what's called a service valet at a car dealership. That's my normal 9 to 5. But I'm a part-time worship and youth pastor at a church not too far from here. So I'm very thankful to be a part of that. And, music's my thing. It's been my thing since a very, very early age. My mom would constantly have the radio on, like 24/7. And, I grew up on all sorts of stuff, pop, rock, all that kind of stuff. And that just sort of fueled my love of music. And I eventually, obviously I sing, I play guitar, I write music.
Nice.
That's just my thing. And then my other things are like nerd type stuff, all things nerd, pop culture. I'm a big comic book fan, love Batman's my favorite.
Boo.
Oh, boo yourself.
I am Marc Boucher. Swear to me.
You go take off with your big blue Boy Scout. But in any case, big comic book fan, I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and that's actually what my wife and I bonded over was Doctor Who. And obviously big into video games. I've been big into video games since I was a kid. Had NES, Sega Genesis, N64, and all down the list. I mainly now I play like action adventure type games. Like Patrick said, I'm big into Spider-Man. That's been so much fun for me. mainly because like I've been big into the Arkham games, and Insomniac, they pulled their inspiration a lot from the Arkham games, and I just love games that have just deep lore like
Yeah,
that. Like
for sure.
they pull from the comic source. So that's been enjoyable, and then first person shooters as well. Like I'm big into games like Call of Duty, Halo, all that kinds of stuff. But I have a PS4, vanilla PS4, and vanilla Xbox One. I'm not one of the cool kids, but
You're not
yeah,
alone, brother. You're not alone.
Yeah, only Patrick is cool.
But
Oh yeah, I have to have the latest and greatest. It's my pastime.
I wish I could attain the coolness that Patrick Novosel has, but in any case, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Nice.
What about you, Mr. Ham?
All right. Well, as I maybe alluded to when I gave my silly nickname, the Brazilian Mountaineer, I'm from West Virginia. I'm a mountaineer, born and raised, not on the playground, but in the back hills of
On the streets.
West Virginia, West by God, Virginia. But
West Virginia.
don't sing that. I'll start going, and you won't stop me. But I grew up in West Virginia, first 18 years of my life, and I loved it for a time. And during that time is when I fell in love with games in general. We talk a lot about games on this podcast and talk about sports, and I actually played a lot of sports when I was younger. I started out with that good old T-ball, and then did the coach pitch, and then the slow pitch, and then the fast pitch, and all that, up until probably my freshman or sophomore year of high school. And then I realized that I threw like a girl, and so
Same.
I stopped playing baseball. And I did also try to play some basketball, I think, during middle school, and I hadn't hit my growth spurt yet. I didn't hit it till like my sophomore year in high school, and by then it was too late for me to develop my skills in the basketball area because I was dedicated to other things. But overall, I really liked sports, mainly for the camaraderie, kind of team sports. I was never big into individual sports like tennis or the ones where it's all on you. I never liked that kind of pressure. I needed to be able to rely on other people and to do something that involved a team. So those were the kind of sports that I tried to play. And but I found that I threw like a girl, and if I was disciplined and if I really loved it, I would have improved my arm strength and I would have learned to throw like a man. But it wasn't that important to me, and I wasn't that disciplined. And so I discovered the games I did like were the games that were less competitive, the games where, like video games and those kind of things. And so I'm just in general not a very competitive guy. And so I enjoy just more hanging out, talking. You can have competition, but I can't take it seriously. Everything's turns into a joke eventually. And if any of you guys are competitive, or if you know somebody that's super competitive, if you try to joke during a serious game, things can get even worse and can escalate. So
Right.
I tried to stay away from that kind of stuff, and so I stopped playing sports around high school. And the only games I really played were video games, and I grew up on NES, Super Nintendo, Genesis. I joined in on that whole Super Nintendo Genesis console war thing growing up, and I never owned a Genesis. I owned a Super Nintendo, but I secretly thought Genesis was cooler, and so I was playing both fields at the time.
Genesis does what Nintendo don't.
That's right. And then, but as I got older, it felt like Genesis and Super Nintendo weren't really growing up with me, and then I discovered PlayStation, and I started playing PlayStation 1. When I got into college, PlayStation 2. But then my gaming stopped there because I was in college and I didn't want to fail. So I played less video games. But I lived and grew up in West Virginia, like I had said earlier. But I eventually realized that I wanted to go other places and see other things, escape the confines of West Virginia. So I went to Ohio went to college in Ohio, Mount Vernon Nazarene University, and I studied religious studies, studied to be a pastor. I'm currently a missionary in Brazil. I've been here for the past 6 years, and serving in a variety of cities, and now I'm a national coordinator of missions in the country, and I'm also a pastor part-time. Sometimes I teach English and do a little bit of everything. I'm a volunteer missionary, so I have to be creative in how I, take care of my family and put food on the table and those kind of things. But I love it, and connecting with other cultures, and sometimes I play games with them, sometimes talk about God, read the Bible together. Have to speak a lot of Portuguese, and that is not easy, but it's really enjoyable, and it's a great challenge, and it's a type of challenge that I think sports and games don't always give me, because they're fun and they're silly, but with language, it's all based on relationship and connecting with people. So I have to practice every day in some way. It's, in the times I've returned back to the U.S. and visited family and friends, I'll come back to Brazil after a few weeks, and it's like I forgot everything, and I'm like that typical gringo that's like, "Hola, como estás? Me llamo Lucas," that kind of stuff, and I need a couple weeks to get reacquainted with the language. It doesn't come naturally to me. It's only really by God that I can be here, that I can serve in Brazil. But the games that I like to play now are mainly on PlayStation. I used to have an Xbox. I do have a Nintendo Wii that I play with my kids sometimes. I am married, by the way. I didn't mention that. I'm married, have 2 kids. I've been married for 13 years. I have an 8-year-old Natasha and a son, James. And my wife's name's Mindy. I got to mention all their names, I guess, since I don't want to discriminate. But we've lived here in Brazil for the past 6 years, and during that time, I've used games as a ministry, and a lot of people play PlayStation out here. A lot of people play PlayStation, so I've actually used it as a way to connect with other people. And so if I don't know where to start, I say, "Hey, you want to come over and we'll play some PlayStation," and from there, I build a relationship with them and get to know them, talk to them about God and stuff. So games for me is more than just something to do for fun. But that's me in a nutshell. There's a lot more to share, but this is just an introduction.
Why do they only or more gravitate towards PlayStation? Do you know? Is it easier to find, or?
I think it started. I think it started because when it comes to PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2, it was really easy for them to. They came here first because obviously PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 came before. I think Xbox. I don't remember the calendar of releases, but I want to say pretty much it was easy for them to pirate PlayStation games first, and so that became a well-known property, and so they pirated everything. I mean, now you can find Xbox pirated games just as easily, but
Gotcha.
it had been here long enough to where it just stuck, and people just stuck with it. So it's really PlayStation heavy here. There are people that have Xboxes, but they're not as common.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, that's all of us. And so, of course, over the next weeks and months, we'll get to know you. We'll get to know not just each other, but we'll get to know hopefully the people listening, and hopefully they'll get to know us. So how things are probably going to run over the next 3 weeks, we of course have to tweak things and figure things out as they go. But I think the idea is to kind of share about our lives, and also to kind of bring a topic to the table of discussion, sometimes serious, sometimes funny, but something that we can kind of, share stories and connect with, and hopefully connect with our audiences. And so I think an appropriate topic for us to start with today is, why start a podcast?
That's a good question.
Deep
Why
question.
are we starting a podcast?
Why are we starting a podcast?
Oh, I was told we weren't going to have to answer questions.
So-
So I was now I'm in trouble.
Oops. Sorry. Well, then Ronnie, why don't you start for us, buddy?
Oh man,
Why
I
do you want to
gotcha.
start a podcast?
Welcome to the hot seat.
No, I think a podcast is just a different way to connect. Not only just with the people listening, but us to connect as well. It's basically an area where we can come on. We can share what happened in our day. It's just that constant connection. I think. And how many times are you sitting at your desk and you're like, oh man, that's funny. It's like, I need to share that with somebody. It's like, we'll be able to share stuff on here. But I think just in general, the connection with people is the reason why I wanted to do it.
Yeah,
Cool.
and I second that because, like Ronnie said, you have stuff that happens in your lives, and yes, you can go to your significant other, you can go to your friends, and discuss what happens. But normally it doesn't last very long. You have a conversation about something, and it'll last 2 minutes, and then another person has to run, has to go do something, has to run errands, has to do whatever that is. But with this kind of format, we're able to isolate ourselves where we can actually talk to each other about things that are going on in our lives, things that are important, things that are funny, and do that together. That's what I feel. That's why I wanted to start a podcast. Not just to be. I'm not looking to be the number one podcast out there. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for more of the relationship that we can bond over things that happen in our lives.
I'm looking to be the number 6 podcast.
Yeah, number 6.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's gonna be a big commonality between probably all of us is the idea of community. I remember whenever I search for podcasts, it's mainly on like common interests. What am I into? What are people talking about that I care about, and how can I connect with these people? We all, well, most of us listen to this one podcast, and we're all part of this community. Where basically we became family. We just listened to this same podcast, and through it we grew in terms of relationships with each other to where it's just there's the connectivity there.
Yeah.
True
That's one big thing for me is like I don't know, it's sort of an internal thing for me to want to be a part of something, and feel like I'm a part of something, and so I guess that's just the need for community. And so I think, if we can, reach our listeners out there and be encouraging to them and connect with them, and again, grow those relationships to where, it's a family, as much as possible. I think that's the biggest reason why we, share life with them, share interests with them, and just, connect.
You guys are just on the money. You took the words right out of my mouth, because that's what we want to do. We want to connect. We want to share life with people. I'm kind of in a different, a different, not phase of life. I'm in a different aspect of life because I'm in a whole different country. I'm surrounded by people that a lot of them don't speak English. And the life of a missionary, I think of the life for anybody who lives outside of their home country. Maybe for some people that live outside of their hometown, it can get really lonely. And, for me, outside of my family, I don't interact very much with people in English. And even when I do, I feel like I have to pay attention to the words I say, and I have to make sure to speak clearly. No offense to my Brazilian brothers and sisters. They are wonderful, and it's amazing, honestly, how many people here in Brazil love to speak English, love to learn English. They really put us to shame, because if it were the other way and a Brazilian went to the U.S. and started speaking in Portuguese, say, hey, let's speak Portuguese together, we'd be like, what is wrong with you? Speak English, man. Come on. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So I give them all the respect, but a lot of times it's just lonely. Something I think is interesting, that in our day and age when we're all connected to social media, we're connected to Twitter and Facebook and We're on, most of us are on Discord. Marc brought up the shout out to the Married to the Games podcast, MTTG crew. We're
Shout
connected.
out.
We're connected in so many ways, and yet it's still just as easy, if not easier, to feel lonely because we can turn that stuff off. And so I feel like we can create another connection for somebody, including us, another connection to be challenged, to be inspired. Life can sometimes feel like an individual sport, but it was designed to be a team sport. And I don't think any of us, as you guys said, we don't want to make or create or build something that is just four guys, four talking heads, saying, "Oh, look at me, look what I did the other day. I put together some furniture from IKEA." We don't have that here, so I can't say that, but you know what I mean. We want to inspire other people. We want to challenge them. We want to connect with them. Eventually we're going to, open things up to where people can ask questions and have conversation, and hopefully we'll open things up to where, we can have guests on the show and have people, share their stories and share the games they like to play, things they like to do. It's just all about making connections and inspiring one another.
Yeah, man.
Mic drop.
Drop that mic. So, well, I don't know, guys. That's all there is that I have at the moment. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Any final inspirational thoughts? Any other things you want to share? Shout out.
No, I do have something. I have a problem here. Have
Yes.
you ever accidentally cut your nails too short?
Dang.
Yes.
So
I
I
can't
I cut
Tell
my
you
nails
how many times
today,
I've done that.
and I cut my thumbnail too short. And when you press on it, you push your thumbprint on something, it kind of like stings a little bit. And
it's
I
like
was
all the
playing
nerves.
Spider-Man last night, right?
Yeah, all
And
those
I'm like,
nerves are just
"Oh,
like,
man." So I gotta wait a couple of days for this to grow back, and that's pretty annoying.
give it
So
time.
that's my problem for the
Yeah,
day.
That's an inspirational thought.
It's going to be a 2-day heal process at least. You're in trouble.
Yeah. If I
At
can
least.
impart one with some knowledge on you guys, is to not cut your nail short. Too
Just
short.
spray some Windex on that bad boy. It'll be better before
Just
you know it.
rub some dirt on it.
With
Dirty
some
Windex.
Robitussin.
Robitussin and Windex.
Yeah, that's a good combination. I don't know
All
if
right.
people know that, but that's the medical term.
Are you even
right
going to be able to go to work? I mean, don't you have to type and everything? Or you out for the next couple
there.
of days?
Yeah, I gotta
Yeah.
call in. I gotta get some short-term disability on this.
He's sitting there typing with one hand, holding his thumb out in the air. I can't use it.
It hurts so bad. All right, who else has a confession or something they want to get off their chest? This is the time to do it, I think.
Well, number one, I think, and you guys will probably find out on this podcast, like, even though I was only alive for 2 years of the 80s, I'm a huge 80s music fan. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the fact that it was just always on when my mom had the radio on. But, like, I don't know. There's just something about 80s music. It just felt like that last decade of, like, just well thought out music. I mean, the 90s sort of had it, but it just started to go downhill, in my opinion. But in any case, some good music to check out is any kind of 80s music. Like, I'm big into bands like Aha and Toto and the Police and all those kinds of. So definitely, if you want to get your morning going, I implore you to put on Aha's Take On Me, because that is some good stuff. And then I would also recommend Phil Wickham's new album that he just put out. Phil Wickham is, for those who don't know, he's a Christian artist. He's a worship leader, and his newest album is awesome. So I would go check that out. And if you guys would, be in prayers, thoughts, because we have a hurricane heading our way.
Oh, that's
Um,
right.
Oh, that's right.
Thankfully, I mean, I'm far enough inland to where the hurricane's probably gonna, die down, but we're still gonna get a metric crap ton of rain. And
That sounds pretty disgusting.
yeah, yeah, and especially we're in an area where flooding has been a really bad problem. Like we made national news because there's a dam not too far from here that we had so much rain that the dam was in danger of bursting, and
Oh.
it would have put like thousands out of their homes.
Oh my.
And so naturally, I've heard different reports of like you're going to get like 10 to 20 inches of rain or something like that. So obviously that threat is a little high now. So yeah, just be thinking of us in Virginia, praying. We'll be all right, but it's going to be rough.
Definitely. Have you had flooding in the past or recently due to hurricanes or heavy rains, like in your area?
It it's basically just the heavy rain has caused a lot of flooding. Not so much by my house, just because we're in the city and it's a lot flatter. But there are certain parts, you know, of the city that are a lot more hilly and are a lot lower to where they're more susceptible to flooding. And of course, like I said, there's a dam right near us. Um, but yeah, this is the worst hurricane. We haven't had something like this hit this part of the country in about 60 years. I think.
Wow, really? 60 years?
So, yeah, it's just not typical to get this kind of weather. But it's just been, the fact that it's the warm temperatures in the ocean, and it's the fact that it's stalling out and gaining such momentum. People on the coast, they're all evacuating and stuff. My city has a state of emergency right now, but we're farther inland. So that just tells you how powerful this thing is potentially going to be. So I mean, I think we'll be fine, but like I said, it's going to be a rough one.
We'll be praying,
Wow,
man,
is there
for sure.
yeah, definitely. Is there any indication of it slowing down? I know that it's and when is it going to hit if it does not slow down?
It's looking like right now. I think it's a Category 4 hurricane, and I don't think it's touched the coast yet. I don't think it'll do that until probably Thursday. But it's not going to get to us, to where I am in Virginia, until probably like Friday, and by then it will have slowed down significantly. But we're still going to be dealing with some pretty heavy rain and winds. So there's a possibility of us losing power, and the ground is already saturated here. And then we're going to get a bunch of rain. So yeah, it's just not a good situation.
So do you guys need to take any precautions or preparations for this coming in? Like for you individually, or are you guys okay with not needing to do any of that?
We'll probably need to maybe get some stuff just in case the power goes out. But we're not in any sort of like mandatory evacuation area. We're at state of emergency level, which is just a heightened awareness, but we're not like, you need to get out now, kind of thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm in the pretty much the western portion of the state of Virginia, and it's more the east by the coast that's going to get really hit, like Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. That's going to get the worst of it, because it's going to be at like, I want to say it's like 225 miles per hour kind of thing when it hits the land.
Wow.
But last reading I saw is supposed to be like 30 miles an hour by the time it gets to us, but we're still going to get dumped on with rain. So
Wow.
Yeah, that does sound bad.
So Lucas, you're coming into the States soon, right? Are you going to be into, like, when is that, and when are you going to be coming through when some hurricanes? Because I know some hurricanes are like forming behind this one, so I don't know if that affected you at all or not.
Usually, anytime hurricanes hit, the East Coast, and they make their way up to West Virginia, the worst it ever is like a thunder, heavy rainstorm. So between that and Ohio, it doesn't really affect us. I'll be flying into Ohio, and in terms of Brazil, we actually don't get anything. We don't get hurricanes. We don't get earthquakes. There's been an occasional tornado, but they're nowhere near like, tornadoes you see in Twister or you see in Kansas or the tornado belt or all that stuff in the U.S.
Right.
So in terms of bad weather, when we have a thunderstorm or get some hail, that's as bad as it gets. The temperatures generally are around between 50 and 80 all year round, more or less. So a little different than the U.S., and I definitely will never complain about those kind of weather conditions.
Gotcha. So when you come back to the States for whenever does that affect your plane? Like, do you guys go around it? I mean, because
It
I'm
could,
assuming you would
but it's
have
going to
to.
be about, let's see, I'm going to be flying up here in about 2.5 weeks. So I guess I've never flown up during this time, so I'm going to have to wait and see what happens. I suppose if it goes, if a hurricane comes from really far south and then goes up Florida or near the Gulf Stream, that kind of stuff, then maybe it would affect me. But if it stays on the eastern coast, that won't really affect my flight because we're a little more.
All right.
I'll be flying more inland, I think. So.
Gotcha.
So when's the last time you came to like the States during the winter? So like, have you come back to Ohio during the winter at any point in like the last while?
Yeah, it was December and January of 2015/16. So like 2.5 years ago.
Gotcha.
Um,
It's like landing
it
in
was
Antarctica.
No, actually, funny, that year it wasn't. It was actually a mild winter up until like a week after we left. I think we were in the U.S. from December 2015 until mid-January 2016, and I think that year most of the U.S. had like a late winter, and it hung on till like April. It was a pretty bad winter. At least it was in West Virginia and Ohio, and I
Yeah.
think other parts of that area. And so, no, I was spared from. We had a little bit of snow, and it was enough snow for my kids to get to see, and get to see it, feel it, make some snow angels, that kind
Oh,
of
that
stuff.
was their first time.
For my son, it was the first time.
That's
For
cool.
my daughter, she had played in the snow before, but when we moved to Brazil, she was like 2 years old. So
Oh, gotcha.
she
Gotcha.
had experienced snow, but she was like 1 or 2 years old, so she didn't remember very much. But for my son, it was the first time, and it was really cool. They had a lot of fun until my daughter threw snow into my son's eyes, and he's a big baby like I was when I was that age. So it went from "this is fun" to "oh, you were trying to kill me with snow." So it was a magical experience, and I caught a lot of it on. I got a lot of pictures of that interaction and everything they did. So it was really
That's
cool.
pretty
But
sweet.
but I don't really like the cold. I don't like snow. I don't like winter. I definitely don't like driving in the snow and ice. And so the weather here in
No,
Brazil
sir.
is one of the perks. I love it, and I don't have to worry about snow. I tell you what, though, that sometimes I encounter like really steep hills, on just random streets where they made a street go really with a really steep upgrade or downgrade, downhill, whatever. And I just think, man, if there was some snow on this, or if it got below freezing, there was ice, people would die. It would, and it's that's never going to happen, or at least it hasn't to this point. But I still think about it. I still have nightmares about driving in the snow. So
Yeah, was that the last time that you've been back to the States? Was that 2016?
no.
Or have you been back since?
Well, that was the last time I came with all my family. The last time I was actually in the States was August of 2016, so a little over 2 years ago. I came back to the U.S. by myself because my grandmother had passed away, and so I wanted to be with family and that kind of stuff. So I traveled on my own then. I'll be traveling on my own again this time when I go to the States here at the end of September, because I'm going in part for business as a missionary. I'll be visiting churches and kind of trying to raise support and get the countries of Brazil and the U.S. More connected, so I can lead more mission trips and kind of bring awareness to the churches in the U.S. and in Brazil, because the perspective on the U.S. in Brazil is quite different than reality. They think everybody in the U.S. has, we're rolling in the money, and there's half of us are in movies, and half of us are famous. The other half are, talking about people that are famous. I don't know. It's totally crazy, the perspective that Brazilians have on the U.S. It's all Hollywood and films and that kind of stuff. So I gotta get them
Yeah, I
connected.
guess not everyone can have.
No, definitely not. So one of my goals is to get the Brazilians connected with Americans, to discover that they're not that much different, and that they have the same difficulties, they have the same challenges, but because they're from a different culture, they approach it in a different way, and I think the cultures can learn from each other. And that's what I hope to accomplish, is giving opportunity for God to work in people's lives, of course through the Holy Spirit, through His Word, but also through culture and through people kind of showing their different perspectives and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Nice.
And I hope,
So when you're
and I hope when I visit, I might get to see one or two of you while I'm there in Ohio. That's my hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh, make it a mission.
Oh, buddy.
So when you come back and you're going to different churches, are you like speaking in front of the congregation at those churches, or is it some sort of workshop, or how's that work?
Yeah, so the ministry that I'm coordinating is called Work and Witness, and they have 4 different conferences all across the U.S. They have them in different regions, and this one's going to be in Gahanna, Ohio. And so I'm going to be going to this conference. I kind of have a little table set up for Brazil, and I'll be sharing about the projects and the things going on in Brazil, how people can be connected with the people, connected with missions, kind of give them some context of what Brazil's like, because there are still people who think Brazilians speak Spanish. So I got to educate some people on, different aspects of the country I serve in. But also I will
Gotta
be.
learn them.
What's that?
I said you gotta learn them.
Got to learn them. And but I will also be speaking in some churches and just having meetings with different leaders, people that I'll be able to keep in contact with even after I leave the U.S. and come back to Brazil.
Nice.
So
That's cool. That's pretty cool. How did you
Yeah.
get into doing something like that?
Oh, I don't know if we have enough time on this podcast to share that whole story, but
Yeah,
in a nutshell, my father-in-law wanted to start a business here in Brazil, and he invited us to come with him. And my wife and I had always felt a desire to be missionaries. We'd always felt a call, like from God, and just a desire in our hearts to serve Him as missionaries. And so we thought, hey, maybe this is an opportunity. So we kind of tried to hit 2 birds with 1 stone, and in helping him start the business and also becoming missionaries in Brazil, we came. The business failed, but we discovered that we had some things that we could accomplish as missionaries here in Brazil. So from there, we lived in another city, and then we eventually moved to another city and became English teachers, and while at the same time being missionaries in the country, kind of being bivocational, like Marc talked about earlier, where we were teachers by day and pastors by night. And
yeah.
Dual identities.
Then from there, we just kind of discovered
Superheroes.
how we could connect with the people, connect with the culture, and serve them in a way that's would encourage them and also challenge them. So, how about you, Ronnie? We haven't heard from you in a while. Do you have any confessions? Anything you want to share? You're still awake over there, right?
I don't know if I'm ready to confess just yet to anything.
Or if you just want to share, get something off your chest. If maybe you cut your toenails and you cut them too deep.
Yeah, I will say one thing. This is going back to Patrick as well. And it's lucky that you didn't do that to like one of your toenails, because that is like 10 times worse. And you have to literally walk on that every single time. That's pretty rough.
Yeah, and then you get the ingrown because you did it too short or too long or whatever it is, and do it to the side. Ah, that's the worst. So and then when it starts bleeding, you know you screwed up.
Yeah, it's too late. You know the morning is going to be rough.
You try to put a Band-Aid on it, and that's not working.
But Lucas, I do not have anything to confess or declare at this time. I will save it.
Fair enough. Sounds like a plan. Okay. Well, I think we'll wrap that up today. Our very first inaugural podcast of GMG. Good morning, guys. Just to let you guys know, you can download the show. You can rate us on any podcast service you prefer, such as iTunes or Stitcher, or are there any others? I'm not up to date on such things. I only do iTunes.
Yeah, I use iTunes as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I have an iPhone. I use iTunes.
Yeah, it's mainly iTunes or Stitcher.
Fair enough. iTunes or Stitcher. If there's another podcast service around the world, let us know. Also, I think you can connect with us as a podcast on Twitter at the GMG Podcast. And also you can connect with us as individuals in a variety of ways. For me, you can find me on Twitter at MTTG Brazil Team, and on Facebook, Lucas Ham Swisher. How about you guys? Pat?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Nova Beyond, and then I am also on Facebook, Patrick Novacell.
Nice. How about you, Ronnie?
You can find me on Twitter as well. I am just at Ronnie Johannes. That's RonnieJohantges. And you can also look me up on Facebook.
Nice.
Marc, how about yourself?
You can find me on Twitter. I'm at Musique. That's MUSIQUE. It's French for music. Musique829. And you can find me on Facebook at I'm Marc Boucher. That's Boucher, Boucher. Not Butcher, not Brochure. No, it's Boucher.
A little bit of anger coming out there.
Yeah.
I just figured I'd clear
Some
the air with that.
Sir, you need to calm down.
We're gonna end this on a good note here.
No, I'm just trying to help the people out there. Let's just get it out of the way so you know what it is. We're done.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. We got a Butcher and a Johannes in our midst.
That's right.
Johannes.
It is a non-soft J.
Not a mouthful at all. All right. Well, with that, I'm Lucas, and that was Pat, Ronnie, and Marc joining me. Go get your good morning, guys and gals, and we will see you next week on our second inaugural episode of Good Morning, Guys. Ciao.
See ya.
Later.
Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4.